Okay, you guys are gonna have to squeeze over there.
We don't bite. We don't bite. Perfect. Good.
Squeeze.
There you go.
There you go.
We're good. We're good.
Can everybody get to the
Perfect.
podium?
Perfect. All right, good afternoon, everybody. I am State Representative Dagmara Avalar, and I am the co-chair of the Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus. And I'm proud to stand here alongside my fellow legislators in the Illinois General Assembly to provide a response to the governor's budget address earlier this afternoon. As a Latino caucus, we have been listening to our communities, to the stories of our communities, and using these moments to drive us, the 17 Latino members of the Illinois General Assembly, to roll up our sleeves and get to work on behalf of Latinos across Illinois. Our community has always been resilient, and together we will continue working to ensure that we have the resources to not only survive, but to thrive as a community. It is out of this shared experience that the caucus continues to work on Raíces, a Latino-based framework that reflects the major equity issues for our community and that drives our work. The Raíces framework represents the legislative and budget priorities that came from you, our community, including health equity, protecting immigrants and language access, education equity, economic equity, and representation. Today we heard from the governor regarding his priority investments, and while his budget proposal is a good starting point for further negotiations, we are looking forward to increasing investments in Latino and immigrant communities. There are many aspects of this proposal that the Latino caucus supports and have the potential to really make a difference in our communities, such as the Ready to Renew campaign, in addition to the Care Portal and Home Illinois. Moreover, our state is in a much better financial place. We have been paying down our debt and building our rainy day fund, which means that the state is in a position to deliver for the people of Illinois, and Latinos are a big part of the state. In his remarks, the governor said, "We don't hide from the truth, we embrace it." And the Latino caucus believes that every resident of this state has the right to health care. Illinoisans, as individuals, as employers, as taxpayers, have experienced a rise in the cost of healthcare and coverage in the recent years, including rising premiums, deductibles and copays, restricted provider networks, and high out-of-network costs. Businesses have also experienced increases in the cost of healthcare benefits for their employees, and many employers are shifting a larger share of the cost of coverage to their employees or dropping coverage entirely, and that's just not right. Healthcare providers are also affected by inadequate health coverage in Illinois, and we will work significantly to expand healthcare access because we believe that every single Illinoisan, regardless of status, we need to establish protections for those that don't have current health care, have it. Again, regardless of immigration status. We also want to make sure that we establish protections for those with medical debt and those eligible for financial assistance. Currently, many of our communities are dealing with mental health incidents that are materializing themselves through violence. A major reason why the encounter persists is the lack of preventative care and identification of mental health illnesses. And instead of addressing the illnesses, the state relies on incarceration and as a short-term solution. And that's also not right. We need to have an expedient approach because the current expedient approach that we have, it's wreaking a havoc in our communities. To create a safer Illinois, we must remake our mental health apparatus so that it centers on the needs of patients while enhancing public safety. Public safety is a public health issue, and continued investments in violence prevention programs are critical to our communities because healthy communities make for safe communities. At this moment, I would like to introduce Assistant Majority Leader Barbara Hernandez.
Thank you, Representative Avelar. My name is Barbara Hernandez. I'm the state representative of the 50th District. I cover areas of Aurora, North Aurora, and Batavia and the suburbs. I'm here to talk about one of many important topics, the TVDL licenses. As we know, a few years ago, the General Assembly was able to pass TVDL licenses, allowing over 300,000 individuals in the state of Illinois to have a license who were undocumented. And now we would like to change a little bit of this as well. Illinois will fully be implementing the Real ID and still makes available the standard licenses that do not comply with the Real ID requirements. There remains a little bit of justification to have this still. When it comes to your purple line on TVDLs, they single out those that are undocumented. They target, they're targets to a lot of people to face discrimination. A lot of families have told me that even if they look older, they cannot use this for simple items that they can purchase on a daily basis because it says it's a TVDL. It's not a regular license. So we want to make sure we change that. There will be a state bill coming forward from the ICER as well, and with the backing of the Latino caucus, I hope we can get a lot of this fixed, a lot of this support from the public. We need to make sure that this is more standardized for people, for families. Also, we want to target allowing to make sure that people are safe, they feel comfortable giving their information. We've heard a lot of third-party vendors that sell the information, private information, to ICE. As we are aware, Illinois is a welcoming state. We have done as much as possible to make sure we protect our undocumented immigrant families. However, third-party vendors are finding ways, loopholes around these important things that we need to make sure we change. So we want to make sure that we continue to protect our undocumented immigrant families, but also continue working to address migrants and asylum seekers that we currently have seen in the last few months. We want to make sure that there's resources available for their families to make sure that they can sustain a life here in Illinois. Now, with that, I would like to introduce Senator Cristina Pacione-Zayas to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm State Senator Cristina Pacione-Zayas from the 20th Senate District, representing the northwest side of Chicago. Because our community skews young, education equity is a fundamental priority within our Raíces document, and obviously how we operationalize it is incredibly important, as you have here a representation of the diversity of our state, of our community. And I really want to just express that on the heels of Valentine's Day, the governor's State of the State and budget address was a love letter. It was a love letter to our youngest Illinoisans. It was a love letter to our young people. It was a love letter to our families, to our caregivers, to our educators. And I'm thrilled that we are making comprehensive and meaningful investments in the entire education system. From the Smart Start Illinois program that was proposed and the various components there, with $250 million investment in the first year, we are going to see significant gains be made for young children, but especially for infants and toddlers and our preschoolers who are Latino. Because we share a huge part of that pie, and it's important that we invest in those first 5 years. When we're looking at the evidence-based funding formula, we're pleased to see that there is at least a $350 million increase. We're looking to actually do more there so that our schools can be adequately resourced. The MAP grant investments and also the investments in the Minority Teaching Initiative are going to be incredibly critical, along with the $70 million that the governor proposed to address teacher vacancies. If we do not put the money in and the investments, we'll not be able to address what we have on the ground. Capital investments in early childhood centers are going to be a major issue, and essentially eliminating college debt. When we are able to take care of our students and say, go to college or get a career in technical education or apprenticeships or whatever, we have to provide those resources and the infrastructure to not just get them there, to get them through. And so what this address accomplished in terms of education was equity. We talked about early childhood. We ensured that educators would be supported, and essentially everyone gets a piece of the pie. It's not going to be at the expense of any other community. We are only going to grow the pie and the investments. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome our 17th member of the Latino Caucus. That is Representative Norma Hernandez.
Thank you, Senator, and good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Norma Hernandez, and I am the new addition to the Latino Caucus. Very happy and blessed to be here. Thank you. I represent my hometown of Melrose Park, O'Hare Airport, and some parts of DuPage County. I love my district, I love my community, and I love my people. I have long witnessed what systematic disinvestment looks like in school systems, lack of job training, infrastructure, and so much more. Although I am happy to see and hear the changes being made by this administration, we have a long way to go to make up for the decades of inequity. That's why I fought so hard to get elected and to be a part of this change that we really desperately need. From the pay gap, especially for Black and brown women, to the investments in workforce development and housing support, there's a lot left to do. We need to address the pay gap with the Latino community and increase the resources for women and minority-owned businesses. These are women-owned, disadvantaged businesses, new industries, and also address the inequities in cannabis. A few other initiatives that I want to see more investment in, that I'm sure my colleagues would agree, is continue to invest more in workforce development, child tax credits, bilingual business navigators, and the list goes on. The area that I represent, the 77 district, will greatly benefit from these initiatives. Our economy will grow while providing a slice of economic justice to those that have been long left behind and targeted by these inequities. Furthermore, we need to support and protect workers in the workplace. Day in and day out, people like warehouse workers, gig workers, child care providers, nurses, teachers, and so many more are organizing to ensure they have a voice in the workplace. I'm here for them and because of them. These same workers are supporting industries that make Illinois the great state that it is, and we need to ensure we protect them from exploitation and predatory employers that only care about their profits. I also want to note that the Latinos make up a large portion of temp workers as well, which means employers are able to cut wages, benefits, and generally perpetrate predatory practices that leave temp workers with little to no recourse for justice or protection. The bottom line is that we need to see real economic justice for Latino workers, families, and businesses. I'm inviting my colleagues and the Pritzker administration to join me in these efforts to see real change for working people in the great state of Illinois. Thank you all, and now I would like to introduce our Senator Karina Villa to speak.
Buenas tardes. My name is Karina Villa. I am state senator of the 25th district, which covers parts of DuPage, Kane, and Cook counties. Today, I'm going to be talking to all of you about language equity and access and Latino representation. These are two important parts of our Latino Caucus Raíces document. The Latinx community, alongside with many immigrant communities that call our state home, are an integral part of Illinois' thriving communities and businesses and make contributions that benefit all of us across the state. Latinos are the second largest ethnic group in the state. There are almost 2.5 million of us here. Moreover, Illinois is home to more than 1.8 million immigrants, and while many of these families make significant contributions to our state, the fact that language is a barrier, accessing state information and services for almost 60% of these households is a challenge we want to eliminate. So this legislative session, we are calling on Governor Pritzker to fully implement the Governor's Office of New Americans, established by legislation almost 10 years ago by the Latino Caucus. GONA has yet to be established, and as the recent crisis of asylum seekers coming to our state demonstrated, we urgently need a Governor's Office of New Americans that can lead the state's immigration and refugee integration policies and services. Moreover, we are working on a set of language equity bills designed to improve equal access to every person here in Illinois, regardless of what country they come from or how well they can speak English. To this end, we are creating the Office of Language Equity and Access to implement Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and other federal assurances to meaningful access, direct our statewide language access policy to promote interpretation and best practices. This new office will be charged with making sure that every state service and benefit is within reach of every Illinoisan. Whether you came here 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 1 year ago, or whether they can speak English proficiently, if you are here, you deserve to be treated with equity and dignity, and without language being a barrier, and quite frankly, without your child being the one having to interpret. We are also strengthening the right to qualified language interpretation when seeking health care or participating in state legal proceedings, such as appeals and administrative hearings. The Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus will also be focusing on efforts to increase Latino representation in state agencies, leadership, employment, procurement, and corporate governance. At this time, Latinos lead less than 5% of state agencies, and this is unacceptable. Latinos need to be at the table and participating in state policy and resource allocations at the executive level and administration. As a Latino caucus, we are committed to championing greater diversity and equity so Latinos can lead in our state agencies and offices. Latinx representation and language equity will continue to be high priorities for Latino caucus this year. Thank you, and now I'd like to introduce Representative Edgar Gonzalez for remarks in Spanish.
What's good, everyone? Buenas tardes a todos, soy el representante González y daré un resumen de lo que han plantado mis colegas en español. Como dijo la representante Dagmara Velar, en respuesta a las propuestas de presupuesto del gobernador, como los 17 miembros del Caucus Latino, con experiencias compartidas, presentamos los raíces, un documento con los ejes principales de nuestra comunidad, que viene de ustedes, nuestros constituyentes. Estamos listos para propagar más inversiones en las comunidades latinas inmigrantes y con una economía estatal más fuerte, sabemos que tenemos la capacidad para entregar y ayudar más a las comunidades que representamos, apoyando los negocios pequeños, protecciones para la gente sin importar su estatus migratorio, eliminando deudas médicas, invirtiendo en salud mental, es seguridad pública, y hay que complementarlo con dinero para programas de prevención de violencia. Como dijo la representante Bárbara Hernández, trabajamos hace años el tema de los TVDLs para asegurar que la gente indocumentada recibe licencias estándares, lo que estamos tratando de hacer ahorita. Con solo una rayita morada se crea un estigma y hay que asegurar que como Estado que da la bienvenida a migrantes hay que quitar barreras para los migrantes y crear restricciones para que información privada no se comparta entre vendedores. Como dijo la senadora Cristina Pasiones Sáez, el presupuesto del gobernador fue una carta de amor para los jóvenes y como nuestra comunidad es joven, este lente enfocado en los infantes y niños en el preescolar nos da la oportunidad de trabajar con el gobernador para asegurar que llegue el dinero necesario para programas y centros de cuidado para niños, que se le dé el apoyo a los educadores también. Como dijo la representante Norma Hernández, la nueva adición a nuestro caucus es importante cerrar la brecha salarial de las mujeres y minorías. Hay que apoyar a empresarias y negocios en nuestras comunidades y otras propuestas de ley que regresarán dinero a la gente más necesitada. Necesitamos más protecciones para nuestros trabajadores, los que trabajan tiempo completo y los que trabajan con agencias de trabajo temporal. Como dijo la senadora Karina Villa, las comunidades migrantes y latinas son una parte sumamente importante de la diversidad del estado de Illinois. Es imperativo asegurar el acceso lingüístico, por eso hay que reactivar la oficina del gobernador de los nuevos americanos y crear la oficina del acceso lingüístico y equidad. Hay mucha gente que se queda sin justicia por falta de acceso a su idioma. Además, pedimos representación en las agencias y departamentos estatales, no nomás en la fuerza laboral, pero directores de agencia con la autoridad de tomar decisiones importantes. Y eso sería todo. Muchas gracias. Oh, y ahora representando mi senadora, la Celina Villanueva. Ay, se olvidó.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm State Senator Selena Villanueva. I represent the 12th District, which is on the southwest side of the city of Chicago, and I am also the Senate Latino Caucus co-chair. I want to talk about something for a moment. We've mentioned raíces several times, and for those of you that speak Spanish, you understand what raíces means. For those of you that don't, I want to give you an explanation. Raíces mean roots. And for us, over the past couple of years, as a collective, as a Latino caucus, we've strived to really disseminate what are our guiding principles, what guides us as our caucus, what brings us together and makes us do the work that we do. This is a collective group of principles that we have worked on together over the years to really hone in on, to really describe the work that we do, but also the matters that are important to our communities. Because while at the end of the day, we represent our districts, we as a caucus represent all Latinos throughout the state of Illinois. And let me remind you, while most of us represent northeastern Illinois, Chicagoland, and the surrounding suburbs, the reality is there are Latino Latinx communities in every single county of the state of Illinois. And all of them deserve fighters. All of them deserve people that are going to champion their experiences, going to champion their fights, and literally help to ensure that their voices are being heard. There's a reason why we've talked about health equity and public safety and immigrant rights and education equity and economic justice and language access and representation, because being Latino, Latinx, Latina, Latine is not just one thing. It's everything. What brings us together, yes, is our heritage, our identifying ethnicity, but what moves us into action are these values and beliefs that our communities deserve seats at the table and deserve to have their voices heard, especially when we're making laws and making decisions on the budget that have direct impact on their lives. The governor had a great start of this conversation. His proposed budget makes mention of a lot of incredible things that my colleagues have already talked about. Colleagues that I'm very proud of for standing here, and the ones that had to go off to the committee because the work never gets done, but are here because we're fighting to ensure that in that, as we continue these conversations, that our communities and their voices are heard throughout the whole process. So again, it's a good start. I'm happy that, we're getting and we're really bridging the gap on education, that we're actually putting emphasis on homelessness issues and housing issues. I'm glad that we're seeing a lot of work coming from the governor's office to say we want to address some big issues. But as a Latino caucus, we got a lot more to do. And it's our job to ensure that, again, we address this as we continue the conversations, because at the end of the day, our communities are resilient. Throughout the whole pandemic, that's been the number one thing that I've literally heard no end. But they're resilient because they figure it out. In the best of times and then the worst of times, our communities figure it out. And it's about time that they stop just trying to survive, and it's about time that they're given opportunities to thrive. And that's what we're here, and that's what we're talking about. We want to make sure that Latino, Latinx communities and immigrant communities in the state of Illinois are able to thrive. And as a caucus, we are committed to doing the work and putting in the work to ensure that the voices of our communities are heard as we continue to do the work on the legislative end and in the budget. So thank you all for being here today. We will now open it up for questions.
every resident has the right to health care regardless of the immigration status. I'm assuming we're going to do a later presser, have specific, bill numbers attached to ideas, but can you just give an outline of what your caucus is envisioning?
Absolutely. We're going to continue the expansion of Medicaid for undocumented. We started with covering undocumented seniors, undocumented adults, and now we have a big gap between the ages of 19 to 42 that it's still left without any healthcare coverage, and it is our plan as a caucus to continue to champion those efforts.
Senator Pacioni-Zayas, I'm curious if you think what the governor has proposed on early childhood education in terms of preschool expansion matches the campaign rhetoric on making preschool available to all 3 and 4-year-olds in the state. Is this really getting us close to what people might call universal pre-K?
So far, at least what I've seen, and not, the devil is in the details, right? So we're going to need to see specifically how that's going to be granted out, what communities may get prioritized, what gaps will be filled. Those are the issues that we're going to be looking for. I think particularly within the Latino community, our center-based programs have really been the ones that hold our families together because they don't stop at the end of the school year. They're year-round. They're from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. They employ our community members, but oftentimes can get undermined by the school-based programs because they're able to offer comprehensive benefits and so on and so forth. And so some of the discussions are going to have to be, how do we make community-based centers and their programs for early childhood whole and on par with our school programs, because when you're thinking about working families, you need to have a full day of care as well as a full year of care. So I'll be looking for those details.
It looks like the budget proposal has about $90 million less for refugee and immigration services. Given this ongoing challenge we're facing with the refugees coming up from southern states, are we funding immigration services enough? What more do we need the state to do in the coming fiscal year?
So based off of the conversations I've had this morning, it's being moved into another program under IDHS. So it isn't that the money is somehow just getting rid of it. We've been having ongoing conversations with the governor's office in terms of addressing the issue and continuously keeping up to date so that we're doing it. Right now, like I said, again, we're getting details because, again, very large, a document that they presented us with, and we're working on a lot of things. But right now, it's just being kind of moved around, so we're trying to determine where it is. Our ask will continue to obviously to push to increase services for immigrant and refugee services, and it isn't just one line item. There's several. There's the immigrant services line item that focuses on actually helping people become citizens. Then there's the welcoming centers, which again, that's what's kind of being changed around from what I understand. But again, it's just going underneath some of that. And then there's other funding that is going specifically to asylum seekers, and then there's another pot that goes to refugee resettlement. So there's a lot that's going on. So we're going to get some more clarification, but again, from my understanding, it isn't going away. It's just kind of being moved somewhere else.
One more quick one. You talked about increasing evidence-based funding beyond the $350 million. Does the caucus or individual members have a target that you'd like to get to? Some advocates have talked about needing as much as $1 billion a year to meet the funding targets for schools.
Yeah, we will be working on it. We are fully aware that if we only do a $350 million increase annually, we're not going to reach adequacy by 2027. I think that's very well established. So we will definitely be deep in those negotiations to see how much more we can add on top of that.
All right, final question? Anybody else?
Senator Villa, you had mentioned, 10 years ago, the governor's office of New Americans was established, but then never really actually fully implemented. What does that say about our priorities here in this building when it comes to actually serving Latino communities?
Well, I think
is it lip service that we've been giving?
I think budget priorities have shown that it's not just lip service. I think that we have to keep working with the governor's office and having these conversations. I think that we've shown commitments above and beyond other states in the nation to our commitment to the Latino communities. But this is definitely a continued priority for Latino Caucus and one that we're going to continue to lift up in our conversations with the governor and his staff.
And then
Thank you.
Between implementing, actually fully implementing that office and creating the Office of Language Equity and Access, do you have a dollar amount that you're going to propose?
We're working on those numbers.
Okay.
Thank you, and I think there's about 50 people waiting for us to end, so thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone.